I think we're ready to begin now, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the City Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Conda, I'm chair of the committee. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and the broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. To any members of the public, if you have registered as a speaker on one of the substantive items, you are consenting to the use of sound and video recording for broadcasting and training purposes. When we reach the public speaking slot for an item, I will call you forward and ask you to make your 5-minute representation. We begin the agenda with apologies. We have two people standing in, Councillor James for Councillor Marshall, Councillor Hyman for Councillor Weatherhold. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Gravel standing in for Councillor Stephanie Chambers. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest that members want to make? No? Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. Are the members content for me to sign off the minutes of the previous meeting, which was the January meeting, as a true and accurate record? Everybody happy? Yes, thank you very much. And then agenda item 4 is late material. Have members reviewed all of the late material? If not, please let me know so we can take a few minutes to look at those. Everybody happy with that? There wasn't very much, was there? Right, we move on to agenda item 5, which is a planning application 24/00966/FUL Unilever UK. We have the first substantive item. May I ask the Senior Planning Officer to introduce her report?
Thank you, Chair. Evening, everybody. I'm Claire Haslam, your new Planning Development Manager, and I'm bringing this report forward for you today for Unilever at Corinium Avenue. It's for the new buildings and associated work to facilitate the installation of a replacement mixed plant facility. That's okay. So there's 4 elements to the application. Let's have a look at the location to start with. So hopefully you're all aware of the location of the Unilever factory, which we locally call the Walls Factory. You'll see to the north of the site there is the railway and the access point is off Corinium Avenue. The blue line highlights obviously the extent of the site, with the application in question here contained within the red line. In terms of the elements of the application, they're highlighted there in pink. So we have 4 elements and a bridge, so 5 elements in total. The element to sort of further south, the larger of the southern part of that southeast pink blob there, pink area, is the pasteuriser building. And you'll see set out in paragraph 1.2 of the report the dimensions of that building. Behind that, we have the clean in process building. Across a bridge, so across the road, we have the ingredient tank farm, which is a large metal building which contains 32 ingredient tanks, which has a stairway up to the top of there across a metal gantry for access. Then we have the link bridge, which goes across the access road between those two elements. And then also a silo area which has 3 silos which contain, which will replace some of the existing silos. So the dimensions there are on in the report there. So they're 14 metres by 3 metres by 11 metres. I'll show you some better images so we can get a closer up view. So here we are on the site. So we've got the existing building, and then the blue elements are the new elements of the building. Excuse me, let me go back one. So to the south of the image there, you can see the tank facility with the 3 silos on the far side, and then the bridge across with the pasteuriser and the cleaning process building to the north there, attaching to the existing building. Take you through some elevations. Hopefully you can see those, a bit faint from there. Here we've got the existing building on the the left-hand side of the top image, and then the new building there is proposed, is outlined in the blue line. So the pasteuriser and homogeniser building is the slightly taller building there, which is the one that measures 16 metres in height, and you can see the existing building behind, which is slightly taller in height. The middle image shows the bridge across, the gantry bridge across, and then we've got another side view there which shows the tank facility. There's some floor plans here. So this is the ground floor of the pasteuriser and homogeniser building. And then the first floor of that building. And then the elevations of that building as it stands. You can see the materials to match the existing factory, and then the cross section in the bottom image shows the bridge, gantry of the bridge. And we have the second building, which is the cleaning process building. Again, very similar elevations, and the bridge is shown there. And then the ground floor of the tank farm. So this is the building that contains the 32 ingredients tanks. So there, all of those are shown there. And you can see the silos to the right-hand side. And the first floor of that building. And then the elevations of the silos with the tank building and the bridge that goes across. And some more elevations. And then the silos that sit at the end of the tank farm building, the 3 silos. I'm going to come back to that lighting plan if we need it, though the lighting has been approved now. So let's have a look at the photos. So we've got here a view from the roundabout by the Wheatstone Inn, looking back towards the site. So you can see the existing silos there that will be removed, and the development will run alongside the existing Walls factory building, and then on the other side of the road against the boundary with the what we call the Amazon warehouse building. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of the context. And here's another image looking southeast where the proposed tank farm will be located, and then with the bridge going back over to the other new elements. And here is a view looking towards the Amazon building. So the development will be, you can see the tanks there in the distance where the new development will be located and reach across the road to the other side. And finally, here's some of the existing buildings and tanks which will be replaced to improve the facility. So that's all I have there in terms of slides. I'll just pop it back to the first one as probably the most useful to talk about when we have the site location up. Let me take you in one more. There we are. That's probably the one that's got the most information. So officers have had, obviously we consulted with neighbours, we had a site notice and press notice. We've had no response back from that consultation period. We consulted with a number of consultees, including Severn Trent, highways, contaminated land, environmental health, everyone you'd expect here, the local flood authority, and we are satisfied that given all of those, any issues that were raised we've been able to overcome through amended drawings for the lighting and also through a series of conditions that you'll see listed in the conclusion of the application. So the officer conclusion at this stage is to recommend approval of the application subject to the conditions. I just want to minute a couple of changes here, which are on page 35 of the report. We just need to remove the word outline planning permission, as I'm sure the applicant would prefer to have their full planning permission. So that's in 6.28. We're just removing that word outline. And then page 38, condition 7. There's a space in condition 7 to add a reference, and that reference should be condition 6. So that's for the archaeology. And then in condition 8 on page 38, the beginning of that condition should read, no works or demolition shall commence until a detailed site waste management plan. So just 3 little tweaks there for that, please. But otherwise, we are satisfied with the application and are recommending its approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We move to the opportunity for public speaking. Can Mr. Gary Dickens come forward and make representation? You have 5 minutes, and would you like a 1-minute warning? Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicants this evening. As no doubt you will be aware, the application site has been used for ice cream production for circa 60 years and is a well-known company across the city, currently employing over 500 people directly, as well as an additional number of contractors. Significant investment was put into the premises in the 1980s to enable all of Unilever's UK ice cream manufacturing to take place from the Gloucester site. 40 years on, a number of the buildings, equipment and infrastructure are now nearing their end of life and in need of replacing. The proposed development relates to the installation of a replacement mixed plant facility. We appreciate that members may not be overly familiar with what a mixed plant facility entails or the terminology and building names being used. Therefore, on pages 3 and 4 of the submitted planning statement, we have provided a simplified overview of the process, which hopefully has been helpful for you, as well as a short breakdown of each individual element of the works being proposed. Both national and local planning policy is clear that significant weight should be given in supporting economic growth, as well as encouraging and facilitating investment for both existing and proposed businesses. The proposal before you tonight represents a multi-million-pound investment by Unilever into the site, which would secure its operations in Gloucester for the foreseeable future. The scale of the development demonstrates the applicant's commitment to this factory, remaining as one of the largest ice cream production factories in Europe and subsequently one of the city's most prominent employers. Positive pre-application engagement with the council's planning officers was undertaken prior to the submission of this application, and the feedback received from these discussions taken on board accordingly. The Planning Officers Committee report comprehensively covers the relevant matters and sets out why there is no reason for planning permission to be refused and why the scheme complies with both local and national planning policy. We respectfully ask you, therefore, to grant planning permission as recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no other public speakers, so we move to members' questions. Can you indicate if you have any questions, Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Chair. Over many years, I worked out of Sevenside Creamery, Dairy, whatever you like to call it. I see this is a pasteuriser, so I'm presuming they're pasteurising milk, raw milk. Okay, I mean, because the boat, that leads on, because they hold 5 million litres down at Sevenside. If there's tankers coming in with raw milk to be pasteurised and then processed and all the rest of it, I was just wondering how many tankers per day would be going in there? Maybe you can't answer that, but yeah, so I mean, that's, if highways are saying that that's okay, do they know how many tankers per day would be going in there?
Yeah, just to be clear, this is to replace and improve the facilities. It's not to increase the employment level or the production that I'm aware of.
Basically, you're saying there's no extra going in there, so it should be status quo.
The planning application form stated there was no increase in staffing.
Councillor Jones?
I'd just like to say it's great that we're maintaining manufacturing jobs in Gloucester with the heritage of Birdseye Walls and Unilever. It's just a shame we couldn't have got more solar panel. It's only providing, 18% on the new roof. So it would have been great to have more, providing more for the factory rather than just 18%. That's my question.
I do actually have on my desk another application to sign off for prior approval for the site for more solar panels. So there's a bit more going on that I haven't yet signed off.
That's great, thank you.
Councillor Tracy?
Well, I probably questions what's been asked before. I remember sitting on the last one. I also remember having so many complaints from the residents who then thought it was a monstrosity because it blocked a lot of light out when it was built. And I'm assuming that this is going to be the same height. I've got more questions. So that we're adding an extra one, aren't we?
More width, I think.
Thank you, Chair. It's not adding to the height, it's adding to the width of the site when it falls below the height of the existing building. It's not the same building as the larger storage building that was closer to the leases that we had those conversations with. This is on the other side of the building by the access road off Crinham Avenue and alongside the Amazon building.
No houses, and no, we've had no objections from it, have we? No, so. And obviously about the, I couldn't go without the highway, but that question's been answered. There's no extra transport going in and out. And would the car park for, there'll be a big enough car park for the staff who work there?
It's the same stuff.
It's the same staff. We need no more staff as such, right? I've got to ask these questions. And landscaping, that's in there too, but they're responsible for the landscaping, are they? Please.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tracy. Just on your question about highways, just to confirm that the planning supporting statement confirms that there will not result in additional staff or production or any significant change in the current vehicle movements to or from the site than is currently existing. It's a replacement of existing buildings and plant nearing the end of life, and that's that. The highways comments did note that there was a demolition and construction management plan submitted, but it didn't include specific details that we would normally require, specifically relating to any extraordinary loads that might, extraordinary vehicles that might need to come on or off the site, support the demolition or construction. So we've asked for a condition for a construction management plan.
You have.
We've asked for that, yeah.
Asked that question in the beginning, with, extra tanks going in and out, but it would be the same tanks, what's going in and out. And also, like tradesmen and everything else feeding, that would all be the same. Well, I think that answers my, but just like landscaping, did we come back to that? Friday?
So on the landscaping, because the site is used for food manufacturing, we don't want to have shrubbery and things that could attract wildlife or vermin. But there is a biodiversity net gain plan for off-site contributions to secure biodiversity gains off-site. So that will come back as one of there's a note on here for that the development cannot commence until that biodiversity game plan has been submitted and approved. So I hope that answers.
Councillor Carson.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's great that you're investing in Unilever. Just one question really. The nearby Horsesbeer Brook, can you just confirm that there will be no contamination at all going into the brook? No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure on that. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure on that nothing's going into the brook.
Severn Trent are satisfied, and so are our consultants who gave us detailed comments on contamination, and also the local Lee Flood Authority are satisfied.
Councillor Gravel.
Like my colleagues opposite, I think we all welcome the investment and the jobs. That's good news for the continuity and good news for the City of Gloucester. I don't get to come to planning committee very often, so I'm probably a bit behind the times. But since I was last here, the Deputy Prime Minister has announced a lot of new legislation that she wants to get through Parliament, which would take away any powers virtually that this planning committee has got. And also, I'm wondering whether or not this is the sort of application that the Deputy Prime Minister thinks should just sail through with no debate, no discussion, no representation from local people, and just get rubber stamped by the officers. That's my first question. My second question relates to the comments about archaeology. And refers to, it sounds quite exciting, the significant Roman archaeological remains referred to as the Wells Bridge. The sentence that intrigued me is this one. It says, given the current site constraints, it is not considered reasonable to request further supporting information at this stage. So my question is, if not this stage, which stage? And what do you think about Angela Range's proposals? Okay.
I don't think Angela's Raina's ideas for the planning system are part of this meeting. There are 3 conditions on the archaeology, and they're on page 37 if you wanted to take a look at them in detail. But there'll be a programme of archaeological evaluation submitted to us and approved. So that is prior to development, apart from the demolitions. Obviously, it can go down to the ground, but then we need that archaeological evaluation. We then have a condition 6, which is for the written scheme of investigation, including a timetable for the investigation to be submitted to and approved in writing by ourselves. And there's a number of points there that need to be adhered to. And then we have condition 7 as well, which can't be discharged until essentially all of that other work has been achieved in condition 6. And the city archaeologist is happy with those conditions.
Okay, that sounds really reassuring. I won't be here, but I don't want anybody 150 years' time say we didn't take due regard. Thank you.
Councillor Alistair Chambers.
Thank you, Chair. My questions, I've got a couple. Contamination. I see there's been some contamination found on site. What would happen if further contamination is found during the construction works?
Thank you, Chair. Condition 12 on page 39 sets out the condition we're proposing on the contamination. So, and that highlights that in the event that contamination is found at any time when carrying out the approved development that was not previously identified, it must be reported immediately to the local planning authority, and then we would seek advice and take that forward in an appropriate way with independent consultant input.
Thank you. If you could get the drawings back up, there's a black section which looked like a bridge. Just checking the height of the ground level to the bridge, if it's stated that on the drawings. Just if it's enough to allow a HGV sort of 20-ton vehicles through.
I'll just get that back up for you. It's in the report as well in the first section, but I shall see if I can find a good section and zoom in for you.
5.3 above.
5.3. Let's go down. Nope, that's jumped it. We've got it in the 1.2. The link bridge is 5.3 above the ground, and let me just share my screen so we can pop it on the big screen. Nope, that's not done it. Is that close enough for you to see, Jamie?
Sorry, I'll just say that again because I didn't say it on the mic. Is the purpose of the bridge to let lorries through on a one-way system, or do they have to turn and make their way back out through under the bridge?
Bridge is just for pedestrian access, isn't it? So have you got the cycling?
Councillor Chambers, I can give some comments about the highway assessment that we undertook. So there were no swept path analysis of or HGV routing within the site provided, but there's no proposed changes to the access arrangements off Corinium Avenue. So we understand that effectively it's designed to accommodate the existing movements within the site. But you're making a valid point. it's a question about whether it's suitable within the site for safe manoeuvring of the largest vehicles that could safely be accommodated. I think we've not commented because it's in private land and it's off the highway network. So yeah, it's
a valid question.
Yeah, sorry, that was exactly my point. If the bridge is created, it means that there's a need for access and the new footprint doesn't work with the access, hence the bridge. And my concerns were if HGVs make an awful noise when they're reversing, and if each HGV has to come in and then perform a reversing manoeuvre, and it's going to be constant revolving HGVs, that could possibly be a noise concern. I've checked the noise consultant and they've raised no concerns over noise. But given that there's no site mapping of the proposed site, it does raise concerns on that. So I was just wondering if there was like a map of the site.
The roundabout.
We've just found the plan we were looking for. The access comes off the roundabout and there's a parallel road that goes around the edge of the site that doesn't pass necessarily under the bridge. There is a route there. Would it be helpful if I pop that on the screen for you? This will challenge our IT skills. So just showing now on the screen. Can you see the cursor?
So,
The bridge comes here and there's an existing bridge further along.
Ollie, can you point to it? That's it. On the bridge.
The proposed.
I'll go and point it.
You can point. We have a volunteer for pointing.
While that's been looked at, I could give another question because it might take a while to find the plans, if that helps.
So this is the proposed layout. So Corinium Avenue is over where Joe's standing up here. And then
It's like at 90 degrees from what we saw earlier. Imagine it coming there, and that's how you come in from Corinium Avenue. You come along there, and that's the new bridge across there.
and then the existing bridge we saw was further along this road here. But we can only assume it works for the applicant and their operation.
I would hazard a guess that like health and safety would take into consideration the flow and all the rest of it. If somebody gets squished by it, they're going to be not happy. So I would assume that their flow and whatever works now, and I would assume it works exactly because it's just a renovation of the plans that are there. But if it works then, it'll work now.
All right, are we happy with that, councillor Chambers? Moving on to your next question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks for that, and thank you for taking the time to go through that. It's much appreciated.
No, no, pardon.
Surface water at Severn Trent, I appreciate there's some conditions in there. I've just been going for the Severn Trent documentation online that's not identified in this document we've been given. It states that obviously the primary request is for soakways, but if the soakaway doesn't reach the permitted percolation rate to allow for a soakaway to take place, that other alternatives need to be found. But they won't allow any surface water whatsoever to go into the bank or into the drains, as far as I'm aware. So if the soakaway doesn't fulfil the building regulations requirements, there doesn't seem to be any other options. So how is that going to be managed?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we have condition 3, which requires the detailed design, including the maintenance and management strategy and a timetable of implementation for the surface water drainage strategy presented in the flood risk drainage strategy and assessment and drainage strategy. So that has to be submitted to us and approved in writing. If the Severn Trent were convinced that it was not possible to achieve through condition, then they would have recommended refusal of the application. So by the fact that they've recommended the condition, they obviously believe that it is possible to get to a position where the planning can be approved subject to this condition. And obviously there's that condition requires a lot of demonstration, technical feasibility, viability of the drainage system through the use of SUDs. So that's holding the applicant to find a solution that does work and does satisfy Severn Trent.
No problem. It'd be quite nice if they could look at maybe a grey water harvesting for any water they need on site, potentially, to use up the water. Very final one, obviously Andrew very cleverly pointed out the archaeological concerns with regards to the burial Roman site that's 100 metres away. So I believe there's quite a substantial Roman settlement site that was 100 metres away. That you mentioned that it's going to be taken down to slab level. Is there any condition in there that they've got to put in a raft foundation rather than strip foundation or pads that accommodate the new structure? So therefore there'd be no requirement for any ground excavation works.
No, we're not proposing any conditions on the foundations. The archaeologist is happy with the 3 conditions that he has recommended we apply to the planning permission. We believe most of that Roman interest is under the Amazon building at the moment, so we're keeping these conditions on in case there are any villas or other elements from that significant archaeology that may have been around and about the wider site. So he's comfortable with those conditions. So we can only take his advice as the technical expert that he's satisfied.
Thank you. Very last question. With regards to that, if they did come across any archaeological things, it'd be nice to maybe display them in reception or something, just saying where they found them on the site. So the final one's the BNG. I know you've got 0.63 of an acre of grassland in Martley Habitable Bank. That's going to be under a restricted covenant. Just out of interest going forward, why are we not looking at BNGs more locally than so far away? It'd be nicer to have this. I appreciate that's not specific to this and they've met the criteria, but is that something we can look at going forward?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. It'd be wonderful to have that BNG more locally. The trouble is you can only buy BNG credits with nationally registered banks, so that's the closest one to us that's nationally registered and able to take the credits. More and more BNG sites will come online, I'm sure, but it's not something we can influence through this application at this time. but we do have regular county-wide B&G meetings at the officer level with ecologists across the county and the policy officers to try and move forward on the implementation of B&G and promote schemes to be considered that are closer. But it does rely on other parties registering their sites so that they can be part of the national scheme.
Thank you. That's it. I just thought I'd say it looks like a good scheme, and hopefully Unilever will get it passed on what I've looked at so far. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
So a couple of further points. Having worked in manufacturing myself, in food manufacturing for a multinational, I'd imagine there'd be fewer lorries using just-in-time and lead production techniques, and it'd be a more streamlined, seamless arrival, delivery, and move out of the factory as reasonably quickly. The lorries themselves would probably by 2035 be low or no emission or lower emission vehicles. And then the question coming on is it's great to see well-paid, unionised, recognised jobs being created. Post-Brexit investment by an Anglo-Dutch multinational with HQ in the UK to be welcomed and encouraged for growth. It's just a shame. It's a healthy treat. Maybe using further research and development, we could use organic and fair trade ingredients.
Thank you. I think that counts as debate rather than question. But any more questions from members? No, I have one. We talked about construction. What do we know about destruction, the removal of the old tanks? Are they going to be taken away intact, or are they going to be broken up on site? Do we know?
We have the waste management plan as part of the condition. So that's where I asked for a tweak in the wording there to include the demolition. So once we have that detailed waste management plan, which is required prior to the works or demolition, we would have some more information about the site preparation, the demolition and construction phases with regard to the waste that is generated off the site. And that also suggests in that condition that should maximise the amount of reuse and recycling of anything that comes off the site and the overall waste that's generated from both the demolition and construction process.
Thank you very much. Right, now we move on to debate, and can I ask you all to keep focus on planning issues and not party political statements, if possible? Thank you. Who'd like to go first? Councillor Tracy.
I didn't think we were party political. I was going to ask the question on the bridge, and I've really got to say thank you to you officers for really pointing it out. And this is a good plan, what's come through. I remember the last one I was sat on, and there's a lot of detail in it, so congratulations on that. I did have a lot of trouble with the one before, like Stisson Road and all around there, but that's blended in, as it does over the years. And I'm going to happily say I will vote for this. I think it's good for the city. I think just one cornetto, give it to me, Walls Ice Cream. It's good for the people of the city for employment, and probably, hopefully, if we eat more ice cream, then have more.
Summer.
Have more people employed. It's in an industrial sort of there, but it's always looks nice as you come in. And I'm blessed that you Believers Brothers, as I still say, Walls Ice Cream, are sticking with our city. And congratulations for doing that. And I'm happy to propose this motion for planning. That's me.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor.
Yeah, I sort of reiterate exactly what Pam said, but the one thing that I found when I was in the Cabinet Member of Culture and Leisure, Walls actually supported all our events. They're giving free ice cream out to kids and so they are a brilliant lot. And it is a major employer within the city, and as it's basically old for new, that's what we're getting. I think it will be hopefully a bit more environmentally friendly and better for everybody. And if they're going to have more solar panels on top, I think it's a brilliant idea, and wholeheartedly recommend it, because there's nothing wrong with it in the slightest, is it? I think it's a good idea.
Councillor Hyland.
Yes, I find this to be a very comprehensive report. Everything's there in detail. Congratulations to the officers. Thank you for that. Unilever is a very good company and world renowned. So I expect they will stick to all these many conditions that have been imposed. I don't think anything's been missed. It seems that they've crossed all the I's and the T's and that. So I would think that we should just go ahead. I know the area, so I knew exactly what was being said. So well done, and I would support the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, I'd like to concur what everyone else has been saying. I think it's a good scheme, and after looking in detail of all the questions that I've raised, there seems to be full answers. A bit worried about Andy saying about the free ice cream. But apart from that, I think there's no reason not to accept this. I think it's great. So I propose we go through to the vote. We're allowed to.
Yeah, so I'll go for it. Sorry.
Councillor Tracy to second.
And Alistair second it, or vice versa, I don't mind.
You propose it, and I'll
I
second
don't care.
it. Pam's proposed it, I'll second it.
Councillor Tracy to propose, Councillor Chambers to second, but Councillor Lewis wants to say something? No? Okay. That's fine. We go to the vote. Everybody in favour, raise your hands. Any abstentions? Any objections? No? I think we passed that resoundingly, and I can remember now, Councillor Lewis helped me remember, 25 years ago, I had to manage the storage and distribution of a large number of orange ice lollies that Walls had given to the library service. I had to store them and distribute them around the Forest of Dean. Thank you, Councillor Lewis, for reminding me. And thank you, Walls. So that motion is carried and permission is granted. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We're ready to move on to the next agenda item. This is item number 6, Section 106 biannual update. We have the Economic Growth Officer to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nana Pierre. I am the Economic Growth Officer, but I'm also I've been given the role of the Section 106 Officer more recently. So I'm presenting the report on an update, our 6-monthly update on Section 106 active cases, because I think in the last meeting I demonstrated that we had a record on Execom of about 60 or 70 odd cases, some historic, some active. So we agreed that we would focus on the more active cases that we are looking into. I've got an Excel spreadsheet which I might just plug in to the computer. So as I talk through. Thank you guys. Is it this? It might not be very visually friendly, so I'll talk through the sheet and I'll talk through the report. So how are things going at the moment? From a governance point of view, we are committed to reporting to SMT quarterly and reporting to Planning Committee every 6 months. This is our second Planning Committee. We have a working group which involves officers from Parks and Open Spaces, the Housing Strategic Team, myself, the SIL manager. Occasionally we have meetups with finance as well. So we're looking at a multi-officer, multidisciplinary approach to our Section 106s to make the most of all the expertise available in managing our Section 106s. Some of the things we've been looking at are our trigger management. So we have started working with revenues and benefits to monitor those triggers. We're also looking at the 5-year supply. So there's no one system that fits all. We're using them all. We're communicating with officers. We're communicating with developers to monitor triggers. And as time goes on, we'll develop a much clearer picture of what's coming in, when to action the triggers associated with each individual plan. It's in its infancy and it's getting better and better, we hope. The systems of enforcement, that is kind of officer-led. So I know Joe was talking about enforcement earlier on. We in the team, depending on whether it's Parks and Open Spaces, depending on whether it's the environment officers, they will chase up the enforcement around with one legal usually, around how to ensure we're getting the most out of those Section 106 agreements. On point 1.2, the third one, we're talking about the removal of from the land charges registry. These are for historic cases, and it is a point that was raised in the audit where we had to review the Section 106s, that our historic cases are removed from the land charges register. So that actually goes hand in hand with the monitoring of the triggers. And we are in the process of seeing how we can remove those historic cases off of the land charges register in the full life cycle, if you will, of a Section 106 agreement. So in terms of our systems update, we are managing our applications through Exacom. We're looking at how to use Exacom even more efficiently. So we're looking at the training modules that are associated with the tool. And we're also looking at how we can better work with our Civica Finance and Exacom. And those are conversations we're having alongside the finance team and also transformation. So in this, I'll have to think of another, screen-friendly way of delivering what it is that's active at the moment. But at the last session, I think Councillor Stephanie Chambers said it would be great to have a breakdown of each line, what it's contributing to. So I've done that here, but unfortunately it doesn't make it very easy to read on the screen, and it is in the agenda, so it would have been circulated earlier. I'm happy to say that we are spending the money. We're spending as much of the money as we can and as quickly as we can to meet those deadlines. Unfortunately, we did have to return a sum to Barratt Homes for the Mayor's Land Section 106. But from the last time I reported to this committee, I'm happy to say that we are meeting spend deadlines for a number of our active cases, and that does include the land east of Waterwells. I can see that there's been our Parks and Open Spaces team have been spending, and also for the former civil service sports unit. So there are about 9 active cases, and more will come on. Some will come on, some will come off. So this is a snapshot for now of where we're at. Housing are working slowly as well on developing those tools. I should also say that we have been working with that working group to look at our Section 106 templates. How do we make them more, how do we get the most out of them with developers as well? And how can we make it more efficient? It's something we will review it every year, and we last reviewed it in December. So yes, I'll move on to the parks and the housing commuted sums. So as much as possible, we will do our best to not have commuted sums for housing and deliver actual affordable housing. Before, when I presented to you, Holly House and Great Western Yard were in the agreement phase. I think they have been completed now. So we're looking at the next stages, the next triggers past the commencement or the finishing of the agreements. In terms of enforcement, we are still in conversations with, I'll just skip from the Beechwood contributions onto the enforcement. So we are in discussions with Miller Homes around the former Gloucester Academy on Escort Road. They have breached their contract with us. The pitch surface is not fit for use, and it's been a long conversation, but it is a conversation that is ongoing, and we hope that it will move towards resolution as opposed to it not being resolved. The other enforcement issue is with the Gloucester Football Club. We are hoping to recover over 70K's worth of funds for flood relief, flood mitigation from the developer, and it is also in discussions with our. We've invoiced several times, and it may get to the point where we're going to our debt recovery company to get that back. We are also monitoring the Beechwood Cotswold contributions, and they are, I suppose, Claire, you might be able to help me on this. I'm not very good with the terminology with the Cotswold Beechwood contributions, but we are receiving more and more of them. So we're also invoicing more and more for these specific contributions. But I could only give you a layman's explanation on those. It's the offset. Please help me out, Claire.
So we take contributions for the Cotswold Beechwoods, where we consider that being impact. So that then goes towards paying towards a mitigation strategy that Natural England are fully aware of. And so those payments, because of the increasing population and therefore the increasing number of people that are visiting the Beechwoods, that's having an impact on the Beechwoods, which are a special area of conservation. So those funds go to implementing the mitigation strategy. So they're literally paid to that process.
Thank you, Claire. So I suppose we'd move on to the risks associated. We have a lot of we have a lot of funds to spend, and we have a dwindling parks and open spaces team. So at the moment, it's not a matter of concern, but long term, we should consider that we need to staff the parks and open spaces teams to ensure that we're meeting those spend deadlines, because they have the quickest turnover of Section 106 contracts to spend and so on and so forth. I'll stop there. I'm quite pleased with all the contributions my officers have or our officers have made towards making Section 106s more accessible. Yes.
Thank you. First of all, that was really, really good, really informative. Really appreciate it. It's probably the best information we've ever had with regards to Section 106. So firstly, I'd really like to thank you for that. That's been amazing. I've got 3 quick questions, if that's okay. I was wondering if you could help me. You've given a lot of information already, so thank you. The developer, you said there's a developer where money was returned. Was it Taylor Wimpey? Correct me if I'm wrong. Barrett Homes. Was that with regards to the Matson site? Mayor's Land. How do you spell that? M-A-Y-O-S, like mayonnaise. Mayor's Land. Do you know how the value of that was and what the reasons was? Was it just not used in enough time?
It was £7,500 and not £1. It was excess, so there was quite a lot of development from the Section 106. It was almost excess. Should I repeat what I said? I apologise. So the sum that was returned was £7,501 with interest, and the reason for its return, as far as I'm aware, is the majority of the funds had been spent on what they were supposed to be spent, and it was excess. So they had decided to use it on a skate park, although the skate park, I think it was an afterthought, from what I understand. We had officers leave, so that's a big. There was no continuity around that, so we had staffing issues around it, but also. So I think that's the reason why that wasn't spent. So we've got staffing issues, and also it was excess. And then also the cyber incident was another issue that affected that. So those are some of the reasons why it was returned.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate all the information given. I've got only 2 more things, then I'm finished. Thank you. There was the Miller Homes football pitch, was not fit for purpose. There's enforcement. What's happening with that, and what football pitch is that? Was it Miller Homes football pitch wasn't fit for purpose, and there's enforcement on that? What football pitch and what location was that, if that's okay?
Long Levens.
Escort. It's in Escort Close. It's where the old school used to be.
What's happening to that now? Would they just have to correct it and make it right?
Linda can tell you the ins and outs of this, because Linda's the one that's been doing all this for years. So, Linda, do you want to give an update?
Yeah, what happened was, and I've got all photographic evidence of it all, they came along and it's basically meant to be in level to start with. It was meant to be done when there were 20% of the houses built. Unfortunately, I wasn't a councillor at the time and it slipped through the net. So I've been plugging ever since. What they need to do is level it for football pitches. But what happened is there's contaminated soil. So there was soil brought onto the pitch with glass in it. And they have gone in and they have put topsoil on the top and they have, rooted it down. But I'm saying that's no good, and the quality of the soil that's on there isn't good. So they've got to come along and I want them to level it all, take out the contaminated soil, and level it all before anything else happens to it. Yeah. So it's been a long struggle, but we'll get there. Thank you.
Well, thanks for jumping in, Linda, and thank you. That's actually really worrying about the glass, and hopefully the City Council closed it off so nobody falls on it and hurts themselves. And the very last one's the developer from the football grounds, 70,000 owed. I thought the figure was around 150,000. Has some been paid off, or has the figure been reduced at mediation?
As far as I'm aware, that's simply that's the amount for the flood mitigation. I can check about any other obligations, but that's the one I'm chasing currently.
So much for everything. I really appreciate everything. Thank you, Linda, for that good insight. It's really, really helpful. Thanks for doing that great work and taking over the mess that last council left. Thank you. And cheers. Thank you for everyone.
Councillor Gravels.
So, first of all, Nina, thank you, Ms. Buku, for all of your work. This follows on from some work that I did when I was a lead member for planning and housing, and most cabinet members, not looking at anybody in particular, but most cabinet members, regardless of their political affiliation, especially when you guys are challenging us, say, no, we're absolutely fine, leave us alone, go and look at somebody else, there are no issues here. But I actually picked up the Section 106 record keeping and took it to an internal audit and said, I can't get all these figures to balance. I don't understand where the discrepancies are. Have I misunderstood? And they said, yeah, you have misunderstood. And I said, okay, sorry, what have I misunderstood? And they said something like, you've misunderstood just how much money is not being accounted for correctly. And so there was quite a lot of work that went on. It kept going to committee, back to internal audit, back to committee, cabinet. And it's really good, Nina, to see that you're making a real impact. We've had conversations a while ago, haven't we? And really grateful for the work you're doing, because it is important that we get our Section 106 finances sorted. And it's also very important that we get the trigger points sorted. I see that you've got that down as ongoing work, but Chair, everybody will know that the trigger points are important, because they say something like, on the 100th occupation of a house, this will be done. On the 200th, the new bridge will be built. And the trigger points are as important in I think, as the financial contribution. So, you know, it's great work that you're doing, and there's still a lot of work still to be done. One sentence in your report leaps out at me, and I'll pursue it, is where it says, under risks, whilst we're on track to meet spend deadlines, our POST were under-resourced. In future, this may affect Gloucester City Council's ability to meet spend deadlines. Well, that would be tragic. That really would not be something that I would want to be party to, and I think we need to pursue that. People who are in the cabinet can pursue that with the leader. The resources have got to be found. Otherwise, as a city council, we lose out financially in terms of the facilities that are needed when some of these new properties go up. We all know the story of, you know, houses, and then somebody says, oh, what about in 10 years' time a doctor's surgery or something like that? So we need to be very conscious of the trigger points. But I think, my goodness me, you've got a tough job, because it's not just this, it's all the other work you do. And I think we're all conscious of that. But just to show off with my French again, merci bien. Okay.
Can I just come back to that? And just say, yeah, as a cabinet, it is a priority to resource this. This is not something that we don't want to be giving any money back to developers. So it is, we are making this a priority. So.
On that, is there any room for amalgamating Section 106 to make a bigger impression on a certain area? Because one of my last things I was looking at was an artificial pitch for Hempstead down at Gordon Lake. And they had all the quotes and everything, but they just couldn't get any money out of anybody. But there must have been some sort of Section 106 for all the work done in Hempstead. And it was, I was banging my head against a brick wall. But I mean, yeah, if that sort of thing does you know, I know you'll have to go back to the people and ask them, is it all right? But is there any room for manoeuvring that?
As far as I'm aware, do you want to sort is they're specific, aren't they? The section one and
Yeah, there's signed legal agreements, they'd have to come in with a variation, which is, you know. Yeah, do you want to? Just to add to that, obviously, when you're securing Section 106 agreements, the contributions that you secure usually have to be linked to that development. So it wouldn't be possible to say, well, we'd like this money for a site 25 miles down the road, because that wouldn't be reasonable. I don't think you've got a SIL here, but obviously community infrastructure levy, sorry, you do have a SIL, community infrastructure levy contributions can be used for that purpose, because they're just put into a pot and they're not necessarily linked to anything. So that's the way to use money more widely if you're looking for that.
Because when Jackie Hall was in a round or whatever, Green Farm, we couldn't spend the money there because it was all done. It was designated as a nature reserve and this and the other, and we had 50 grand left. But Westbury Homes allowed us to move it up to the Causeway. I think it's just a question. Yeah, you can change legal. If you just ask them, if you want to amalgamate half a dozen to make one big project, which might facilitate throughout more than just where it was intended. So just for future use.
Councillor Tracy?
Well, Councillors, yeah. And I do agree with Councillor Gravell's, like, the risk element. So how, like with Westgate, with all the development going on, it's huge. You know, they've had their fair share there, haven't they? And 106 money too. And like going with the Gordon League and everything else. And I wanted to upgrade the play area, and you know, to do a people's gym, and we were looking for money like that, and also for the school. But am I right in thinking too that our money, 106, because Westgate's diverse and got, you know, like a bit of Podsmead and everything in there, that money got to be shared with those too?
Specific site.
Because Podsmead was part of Hampstead many years ago. But that wouldn't happen, would it? No.
Specific site.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's related to the developments.
On those sites, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, so we just got to sort of wait and see, you know, how this all works and everything else and comes out. And it's not going to be tomorrow. It could be another year or so, couldn't it? And I appreciate that.
Don't lose the money again. Don't lose the money again.
No.
I was just going to add that it does often come down to the drafting of the 106 and what was sort of requested at the time. So obviously different departments through consultation responses will put forward what they think is needed in the area and what income they would want coming in to pay for that. And then the 106 will usually be drafted to reflect that. So sometimes some of the 106s are drafted a bit more widely and they can be used in sort of areas adjacent to the site. Sometimes they're a bit more specific, like you say, sometimes if they're a bit more widely drafted, depending on the developer, you can sometimes go back to the developer and say, this is what we'd like to use it on. Would you be agreeable to that? And sometimes, therefore, you can use it for something a bit more widely, provided it's still within the limits of the 106 that's been agreed.
Yeah, it's like come back like Hill Farm and all that. I mean, you know, I mean, Hampstead's had enough of housing and everything. I think they should have a bit more 106 money spent back into it, really. But thank you. So hopefully there might be a flag to fly.
Councillor Hyman?
Yes, I know we've had some issues with Section 106 in the past on this council, but I won't dwell on that. It's nice to see now that we're getting a grip and the officer's doing a great job on it. But I understand that the legislation around Section 106 is being reviewed by the current government. So further information from the Deputy Prime Minister on that one.
Councillor Gravels?
Quickly, and maybe a little controversially, if ever there was a case for joined up a unitary authority as this sort of work, because whilst we're all doing all this work with Gloucester City Council and our 106s, the County Council are also doing similar work on the same 106 probably, but from the highways and public transport viewpoint. So, you know, it's duplication. it's not joined up, and I put this forward as a prime example of where we'd be better off with just one unitary authority. I'd speak with some passion because I've been on the receiving end where my area of Abbeydale and Abbeymead has lost out because the money hasn't come into the right part of the city, and maybe it's gone even over the border into Upton St Leonard Stroud District Council area. It's not clear at all, but I think with one local authority, unitary authority, looking at all of this together in the round, it presents a better deal and a better outcome for the people who we seek to serve, members of the public. Much more joined up, much more effective, much tidier, and much more efficient. I rest my case.
And I'd like to add, from the point of view of my own ward, when we had a housing estate built recently, most of the money went to Blackbridge Athletics Ground. And the most that my ward is getting, I think, is an upgrade to a play area, simply because we don't have very much open space. So, you know, it works in very many unsatisfactory ways as well as satisfactory ways, I think. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to that? Councillor Castle?
This is just general, going on what you're saying. I mean, it's very similar with Tewkesbury Borough, right on the edge of Long Levens, and they are in, we are in, as Long Levens are under Tewkesbury. It would be great to see Tewkesbury bring some money our side to help with green open space and plot court. But we'll wait and see. Yeah.
And maybe to see some more effort on behalf of Tewkesbury, looking after their boundaries, their borders, which they seem not to do at the moment. Councillor Gravels.
Really generous. I'm going to ask something that nobody hopefully will disagree with. We ought to have it recorded in our minutes as well. It's the decisions we've taken. Our thanks to Nina for just sorting out this. I can't find the right way to describe
Nana.
it. This
Nana.
bunch of bad record keeping.
She's Nana, not Nina.
Come on. Okay, we've been speaking in French, so I'm not sure I understood. Okay.
Yes, I am Nana, as opposed to Nina. Yes, but I will extend that thanks back to the numerous officers working on the Section 1 issue.
That's really good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, are we ready to vote on accepting this report? All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstaining? And you put your hand down. I think that's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to delegated decisions. Are members happy to note delegated decisions? Yes? So the date of the next meeting, Tuesday the 6th of May. We'll be recovering from the county council election at that point, I expect. Tuesday the 6th of May, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening.